And welcome back to another SuperCoach video with me, JD. You're joining me for the round 2 SuperCoach score review. Now, before we jump into it, you will notice a couple of differences this week. Firstly, there is no camera, there is no video. Secondly, the audio is probably going to be a little bit scuffed on this, and I apologize in advance. I am down in Melbourne visiting my mum. I got work this week down here as well, and caught up with the boys for a game of footy today. Watched the Dons get up, which is all good, but unfortunately means I don't have the recording equipment with me, and it was a choice between waiting until Wednesday night, Thursday to get something out versus put something out now that could help frame your week, even if it's a little bit more scuffed. So we've picked that one, and you can even see powered by StreamYard. I don't have the premium version with me or anything like that. So yeah, we're making do with what we've got today. And in the spirit of that, I'm not going to go through the full games. I will go through all the games, but I'm not going to go through it in the same level of detail as last week. But I will go through my team, my trades, the moves I made last week, what I was kind of thinking and teeing me up for this week. And the other thing I'll go through is, I guess, the priority ins and outs. And this is quite important because really week 2 is the last chance we get to fix our structure and fix our sides before prices start changing, before things start moving. So it is really the most critical week in the season when it comes to trading, I guess you would say. So it's all about fixing up our teams, making sure we're set up ready to go well from here. So we'll go through those priority ins and outs. But let's look at my team. So 2202, so just cracked the 2200 mark, which is look an OK score. I think like the top score's around 2400. It was enough for me to move up a little bit in the season rank overall, heading in the right direction, which is fine, but still a little bit early to actually know how things are going. Now, is it actually going to go? Slow computer as well is going to make this a little bit tricky, but all right. So where could I have gone better? Firstly, I traded in Dacos for Jones, so that went well, and I traded in Chandler for Bruin. So both of those great moves. And then lastly, thank you. I traded in. I traded Josh Kelly, and really I was weighing up between Cornelio and Setterfield, and I went the wrong way on that one. Both kind of opened up different lines of trades for this week. Can you please go away now, KFC man? There we go. But yeah, unfortunately, I picked Cogs over Setterfield. So that alone was 50 points. I didn't have any of Laird or Oliver. No Laird, obviously a huge help this week, but not as much this week. So definitely lost some points over those that had those types. Ridley didn't really have a great week. We'll talk about him a little bit in a second. And I was missing Zeeble as well. So yeah, all big scorers I didn't have. Lots of other things did go right for me. I mean, 2200 still not a bad score in the scheme of things. But yeah, and of course I had Darcy, who was shocking. All right, so let's go through the priority ins this week. There's a few that like are obvious inclusions, I would say, like a Hopper maybe or an Ashcroft, but pretty much everyone started them, so I'm not really including them on this list. Although some of these maybe still like were highly owned, maybe I could have included them. But all right, in terms of priority ins this week, if you didn't start Sheasel, you have to get Sheasel, number 1. 2, Dacos. He is a keeper at 500k, absolutely. 3 would be Zeeble, who looks like he is going to be a keeper, or at least around the mark. Discount option maybe for 350k. At 4, I have Setterfield, who has converted me into a believer after seeing him live this week. Although there are some concerns about him from an injury perspective, so we'll talk about them shortly. Probably unlikely to be a keeper, but does look like he can go around the 100 to 105 mark, which is going to make huge money and be a really good stepping stone to a premium. 5 would be McKenna. There were some people that went without him. He's going to make a lot of money, so number 5 would be McKenna. 6, I have Chandler down in the forward line. 7 would be Davies Uniacke, who has proved to be a great option at that 550k price point. And then lastly, I would have Ollie Hollands here, who was really good in the weekend. We'll talk about him. So those are my 8 priority trade-ins for the week. There's a mix, obviously, of kind of like mid-prices, rookies, and almost discount premiums there. You don't have to go like force 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in order, but it's more like those are the types of players you should be considering, given your structure and everything else, and looking for those. The priority trade outs we'll talk through quickly. So Gone and Steele are, I guess, at the top of this list. Realistically, you could wait a week because they're not going to lose money. So if you do have other pressing things, you can, of course, wait a little bit, but they're both going to be out for at least a month, it looks like. So these are trade outs. Don't want that money sitting on your bench, but you could hold it for 1 week if you really have to and if it works for your structure. Third would be Bruin. Fourth, Wanganeen Malira. Fifth, I've got Callahan, who looks like he is injured or at least carrying an injury after a shoulder knock in that game. And so, look, he's cheaper, not going to lose a bunch of money, especially if he continues to play on it. Maybe one you could hold, but yeah, it's a trade out at some point. 6, I've got Jack McRae, who I'm carrying, and then 7, I've got Darcy. We'll go over McRae in a second, but he's been well and truly magnetoed. And then Darcy, not a good score at all, but he's got at least a soft matchup this week in BJ Williams. So those are the priority trade ins and outs. I'm going to get them out of the way at the start because, yes, apologies for the quality. We'll go through, I guess, some of the games now. As I said, I'm not going to go in as much detail as we did before in last week, and then I'll go to my trades this week and what I've teed up, what I've set up. All right, so it feels like a lifetime ago, but we had the Blues play the Cats on Thursday night, and it was a pretty good game with the Blues getting up in the end. And by the way, there's lots of people ask me, what is this website? It is footyscores.net. There you go. You got the address up the top there, footyscores.net. You've got a light and dark mode if you want, but I think it's a little bit more catered towards SuperCoach than fan footy, just in the sense that it has like things like hit out to advantage in here. It's got, CBAs, kick-ins, score involved, like some of these advanced stuff that is quite handy from a SuperCoach perspective. Okay, so on the Carlton side, there's not a ton to talk about. Like Cripps didn't really look like it was a must-have. Primo Doherty definitely had a down game. Had a couple of CBAs, but not that much. Had some kick-ins, but like shared that with Sard and Newman. Some people are asking, like, is the inclusion of McGovern hurting him? Who also took some kick-ins, maybe a little bit. But Doherty had, I want to say, like 3 or 4 down games like this last year as well. I wouldn't overreact. Some people are talking about trading him out now to facilitate things like day costs because it does free up 100K. If you don't have any other problems, that may work. Absolutely something you could look at, but I think Doherty is a hold in most cases. I guess the important ones to talk about here are probably the rookies. So Hollands looked really good. I felt like he was underscored with how well he was playing in the first half, and the second half his scoring actually kind of matched up with how well he was playing. Did really well here. So he's actually got 2 decent scores now. Like, I mean, the first game wasn't that great, but he's got a 64 average over the first 2 games, and they've played 2 tough opposition. Carlton's fixture really opens up after this week. So what have they got? GWS now, who looked absolutely awful. This is going to be too slow to have a look and scroll through all these, but I want to say they've got like North, West Coast, and Adelaide or something like that. So Blues fixture really opens up now, which is, I think, partly a reason maybe to hold Doherty, but then also why Hollands is someone you should definitely consider as a rookie option if you've got all the other kind of top targets. And then Cowan looked just all right. I mean, he's a bench spot. I think there's probably a chance that he gets dropped at some point if like Sincotta or something like that is playing well on the twos, but is what it is. All right, on the Cat side, I think the interesting inclusion was Jack Bowes. He played a little bit of everywhere, which is what they'd been talking about the preseason with him training across all the different lines, and we definitely saw that. It looked like in the first quarter, in the first half game, he was almost playing like Tom Stewart's role, where he was floating around, intercepting, getting a lot of rebound out of the back half. We also see him get a little bit of time kind of like at stoppages and then also at the forward line as well, where he missed a sitter of a goal. I think Scott talked quite positively after the game, and it looks like he might have been a good option for us if he'd been fit for that round 1. I wouldn't do anything about this pick this week, but if for whatever reason you have leftover money after this week and you're sitting on someone like a Jones, maybe Bowes, if he puts in another good performance, is someone that you could look to. Tanner Bruin. I mean, yeah, you just got to trade him. I think even less mid-time this week than he had the week before. I want to say he went from like 40% to 30% CBAs. Talent is there. The role is not. Unfortunately, just move him on. Simple as that. I realize I haven't even looked at things like break evens or anything like that this week. Oof. All right. Well, that's loading. I mean, maybe some of that conversation with the numbers and stuff might come a little bit more into play with the boys this week if I am able to join the podcast, but we'll see. All right, Friday night we had the Lions against the D's, and this, of course, was the game where we had the blackout in the middle of it, which was pretty interesting. The scaling went all over the shop, didn't know what was going to happen, but then they ended up coming out and playing and finishing out the game, which I think actually probably helped Oliver, even though he was getting pretty favourable scaling as well. But he was really good over that last 10-minute period where they fought back and got quite close. But really, up until this point, the Lions had dominated them, and without that stoppage, you probably think they wouldn't have got that close. All right, so Dunkley had a nice little bounce back game for those that were doubting him. Same with Ashcroft. There was some talk about people trading him, potentially trading him this week. I hope you weren't seriously considering that because, yeah, bounce back, showed what he's all about. And once again, he's played two tough midfields now and look, still put up decent numbers. So he's going to be a very nice rookie for us, going to put some good points on the board. McKenna, we already talked about. Good rookie, looks very good, comfortable at the level, will continue to make money. Very good option down back. And then Wilmot, I thought was pretty impressive this game as well. Actually liked what I saw out of him. So, yeah, I mean, I think most people started him. There's nothing really to do. You just hold on to him. If you didn't start him for whatever reason, I don't feel like you're clamoring to get him in. There's probably other rookies that have popped up. And then like Neil just looked okay. Zorko's role was pretty good. I mean, this feels like 2021. We're talking about Zorko and Zeeble again, but yeah, like he's not really an option at the moment. Got subbed out as well just to manage him. Otherwise, he would have gone even larger than what this is. On the D side, the big story, of course, was Max Gawn going down early from Jack Viney friendly fire straight into his knee. The worst fears were that it would be ACL, but it looks like he's escaped with just a medial sprain. So potentially like 4 weeks, I think, at earliest he'll be back, maybe a little bit longer. I think this probably does have a little bit of a negative effect on Oliver, but he can win ball regardless. It should have a positive effect on Grundy, but didn't particularly score well despite being basically the main ruck for this game. I think Big O held his own, Darcy Ford held his own, and Grundy only ended up having 5 hitouts to advantage, which is quite low. I'm guessing NFF is sharked in here as well. On the D side, is there really anything else to talk about? Oh, Chandler. Chandler was very good again. Yeah, liked what I saw out of him. I think he's comfortably in there. I wouldn't say comfortably, but I would say it's hard to see how he's not best 22 for them at the moment. Yeah, really liked what he did this game again. It's back-to-back nice games. We got break evens loading here. What they were there. Can I turn this on now, please? I wonder how much of this is going slow because it's this computer versus everyone's just on SuperCoach at once. Do you know what? It might make sense for me to try and work the phone while I work the screen. But yeah, so Chandler very good, and once again, that's why he's up there in the must-have rookies. He's a fieldable option, and beyond Sheasel, I don't think we really have anyone in the forward rookies that you'd be happy fielding. Maybe Philippou as well in the right matchups. Cam obviously had a good game, but yeah, Chandler very nice. Here we go. Break even -94. That must be up there with one of the top ones in the game. Can I get the maybe it's better if I go to players and try and sort by break even, which I was going to do at some point because it'll help me find players I haven't really thought about, or maybe change my rankings a little bit. But yeah, so that was that game. On Saturday we had the Power against the Pies, and at this point in the round, I was absolutely flying. We hadn't had any of the disaster yet to come, but yeah, Dacos traded in this week, and he obviously looked great again. They tried tagging him early with Jones, it didn't work. They tried moving SPP, who restricted him a little bit, but I mean, honestly, Dacos is looking very ominous at the moment as a second-year player. Was very good once again. None of this is loading. That's a worry. I don't even know if I can show trades. So yeah, I think the talking point out of this game was Darcy Cameron, who looked very nice once again in the ruck. I mean, Lysette's a bit of a crab, but yeah, it's 2 back-to-back games, and for those that have Darcy, it does look like Darcy Cameron is actually the cheaper option if you don't want to go up to like an English or something like that, and definitely something I looked at a little bit during the weekend. So he is back on the menu. Now, interestingly, and let's see if we can get some CBA numbers for old Cameron up. It looks like he's shared slightly more this week, but from my sources, when oh come on, what no matchups? Why isn't it going to CBAs? This is going, I clicked the wrong button. This is going from strength to strength, this one. Break even, there we go. Slowly getting it going. All right, so Cameron had slightly more CBA, 68% to 62%, so it looks like he went up. But the interesting thing was when Darcy Cameron was on ground, he had 90% of the ruck work. So while they are using Cox, it actually seems like when Cameron's on the ground, he is the #1 ruck, which is pretty interesting. Yeah, so definitely the cheap option that you can go to. I dismissed him definitely with Cox playing in the preseason, thought it was going to be closer to 50-50. Doesn't seem to be the case. And Cameron's around the groundwork looks like it's gone to another level again. So really happy. All right. So sorry, back to what I was saying before with some of these must-haves. You can see here, Sheasel, Chandler, McKenna. These are the rookies I was calling out. All the lowest break-evens, which kind of intuitively got there. Setterfield, -49. He's once again why he's up there as well. It's not just the points on field, but going to make the cash as well. Okay, so pies. Is there anything else worth talking about with the pies? I mean, it's the Dacos show. Cameron looked good. I don't think there's really anything else worth mentioning. And then on the power side, Horn Francis was the one that people traded in. Yep, this is why we wait and see on some of these. Look, he is better than what this 45 was. And you can see here, 6 frees against. Those are all instantly counted as clangers. So that's 6 clangers he had that he probably wouldn't normally have. And Port got dominated pretty badly. So I think he would rebound from this. And if you went early, maybe you could hold him if you somehow had some of these other guys we're going to talk about and hope that he rebounds. But this is why I was talking about him giving me Rao vibes from last week. That's almost exactly the same thing. And then Rosie, we should definitely talk about. So he was missing for, I want to say, close to 20 minutes, getting like an injury assessed. But despite that, still managed to score a 90, and he got moved forward a little bit post that little knock as well. He's fine from all that. But yeah, it's good to show that, like, even missing that time and some uncertainty, still able to put out a 90. So going to be a very solid forward option for us throughout the year. And then nothing else really worth talking about. All right. Crows, Tigers. I got accused of a lot of salt, but I will say I did not think this 147 was deserved. There were a lot of turnovers for Laird that weren't clangers, which, I mean, sometimes that just happens. Like, it definitely can happen. And you kind of just get lucky with how those stats are recorded and where the ball lands and all that type of stuff. But I thought he played much worse than 147. But hey, if you're an owner, you are not complaining. It makes up for the 50 last week. It's going to protect him from any big price falls, and it will fix itself up pretty quickly. So you'd be thrilled with that. And that's, of course, why we hold these plays. We don't kind of move them on after 1 week. You get these bounce backs from these premium guys, especially against a softer midfield in Richmond. Dawson had a very Dawson-esque game. In the sense that it was slow, can sometimes feel like he's falling behind at times, but then also just turn it on with a combination of kick-ins and intercept marks. Was very good overall, and yeah, scored pretty well. Be happy as an owner, especially given that a lot of the other premium defenders went backwards this week. Like Sicily wasn't as good, Doherty was off, and then Stewart's obviously gone, and then Sinclair was good. But yeah, Dawson had another decent week. Pedlar is probably worth talking about. Not really an option. I like him as a mature edge guy. The stuff that I reviewed on tape last week was good, but I mean, a 36 is no bueno, especially at his elevated price tag. So that's one that you don't need to probably think about again. Max McElhaney looked pretty good, but honestly, we've got enough defensive options that I don't think he really needs to come into consideration for anyone, because you've got Ginby, Constable, Cowan, McKenna, Wilmot. I might have just named a couple of but yeah, so we've got 5 or 6 guys probably ahead of him, so just not one to consider. Hopper. So yes, once again, this is why we don't trade these guys out early. We wait another week, especially when they have the role. 120 SuperCoach repaid the faith, looked very good. Not only in the contested work, but getting a lot of ball around the ground. I think it was Broad that was on radio or something that mentioned that he, like, Hopper was in his SuperCoach team as well, or something, and like hadn't they hadn't done well by him, basically, like they'd burnt him a lot, and that was being reviewed on footage. And I think that came out in this game. They were looking for him a lot. They used him a lot. Now, if Hopper was ever going to bounce back, it would probably be in a softer matchup like this, but obviously very promising, should make some cash and be some good points on field. So hold Hopper, and if you don't have him, probably one worth jumping on. Is he going to average around 100? No, it's probably closer to 95, 90, 95, and I would honestly have Setterfield above him and maybe Warple. We'd have to get into the CBAs to have a look at that, because I think Warple's CBA's dropped off this week. Setterfield would be higher. It's got to be 70 or 80%. Warple dropped a little bit, 54%, so that's not good. Nash, when Nash and Day got more, which was interesting. Sorry, who are we comparing with? Setterfield? Setterfield got 90%. That's crazy. And then Tigers, so Hopper. Hopper was up at 65%. So back-to-back 65s. All right, I'd have him above Warple, just given Warple drop, but Setterfield's probably number one of these guys for the midfield if you're missing all three of them for some reason. Nankervis had another good week, so for any Nankervis starters, be happy, but I mean, it's very lowly owned. Samson Ryan had his, and it's not his first game for the Tigers, but first game for the year, and he's rookie priced. First 3 kicks were 3 goals. He's on the bubble next week, so you can always wait a week, see how he goes, and if for whatever reason you need to downgrade someone at that point, you could look at Samson Ryan as an option. But given that he did kick 3 goals, definitely has at least secured himself another week in the side. Oh, Taranto, yeah, I mean, continue to be Taranto. If you like disposal efficiency and clean decision making, he's not going to be a man, but he is going to rack up these points every week and be around this mark. So yeah, it's going to be perfectly fine. Young, I think was a debutant, but not really relevant. And that'll be everyone. All right, let's keep moving. Dogs Saints. First of all, shout out to Caminiti, Cammer the Hammer. Is that what they're calling him these days? Who doesn't know Bruce Banner? Cammer the Hammer, who doesn't know Banner. Who kicked his first AFL goal, and he ended up actually kicking 2, and I thought was very good for the Saints. Member of the FantasyTakeTV Discord, so shout out to Cammer. I will talk about him in a second when it comes to Jones. But all right, let's start up with the dog side. So English had another monster game, looked very good. I mean, you can see there 12 hitouts to advantage of the 26 hits he had. So that's very good. I mean, he's probably not getting sharked much either with the remaining ones. When he wasn't in the ruck contest, he looked like another midfielder. They were using him in handball chains, which is scary stuff. That's where these rucks can really go to another level. And I mean, this is the sad thing with English. We had him as R1 when preseason started, but then a couple of soft tissue injuries scared us away. And now it's hurting because he's going big, and he's definitely one that I'm looking at as a Darcy replacement this week, even though it's a sideways trade that we normally avoid. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but yeah. Bont, who was my vice captain this week, took that 125, looked pretty good again. But the story of this game is Bevo, and what is he doing? He must be in the hot seat to get sacked because he was throwing the magnets. And when I say that, I am fully aware that I think he just signed like 2-year contract extension. But he was throwing the magnets around like no tomorrow, and these moves did not make sense. So English about the same. Libba up there at 91%, that's fine. Bont a little bit more. McRae dropped off 20%, played him forward for a third of the game. Bailey Smith dropped off. Trullo obviously gone. And then they played Caleb Daniel 60% CBAs. He had more than McRae and Baslenka. And then after this embarrassing loss with these confusing moves, he promised more confusing moves. And where I'm going with this is I think English and Bontempelli are probably fine, and Libba is fine for those that have him. Their roles probably aren't going to change. But if you had Bailey Smith, if you had McRae like me, if you even had Richards, who I think I saw forward at some point, you can probably get rid of these guys and not touch dogs. This is quickly becoming the new GWS situation where there is so much talent, so many good potential scorers in the side, and they are going to be killed by a coach that is confused with what he is meant to be doing. So yeah, McRae looked good when he was on the ball, but played forward a lot. Can't get the ball there. He is someone that I want to trade out, which is a shame. Bailey Dale, Richards, yeah, like they're just sharing points. It wasn't great, and especially like this is a game where they could have gone well. Crozier was the one that really impressed. So obviously he wasn't played week one, played this week and was very good, and was one that people were looking at as a 200k option to pair with Jones. And it looks like the duo might have gone okay, but yeah, I mean, Crozier is kind of in the same boat as Bose, which is you can wait another week, see how they go next week, and then if it helps your structure to go down to one of them, they look good, still jump on. Can't see how he's getting pushed out of the side with how he played this week. Jones, I thought was good in the first half. It was unfortunate he had a head knock within the first 10 minutes. He'd already taken, I want to say, at least one intercept mark, was like scoring okay points. Had to go for a concussion test, missed kind of 20 minutes, came back and was all right the second half, the rest of the first half. But in the second half, I thought Kama did a really good job with him where he was, to me, it looked like he was leading him up the ground a lot more and forcing Jones basically to come with him and not be able to sag off or be part of like an intercept marking position in packs. So I thought Saints did some like really smart tactical stuff to kind of limit Jones' ability to intercept mark. And it actually started to curb his scoring a little bit. He did have a few nice clunks that helped to make up that 76. But given the Saints do seem to be a softer team to give up points to defenders in SuperCoach at the moment, I guess like pretty disappointing return for Jones owners. But with that said, like 76 for 200k or whatever is fine. It's just like, are you going to get better scores after this is the question. He's not a trade out by any means if you held him to this point, but like I don't think he's a must-have or anything like that either. All right, and then on the Saints side, so Marshall did much better this week. Yeah, carry on. 130 points for 500k. Take that. Sinclair had another good week. He's actually he was the one that was disrespected of the defenders. That we thought may not have a good year because they're throwing Wangan and Malira down there, who's going to split kick-ins and some of the like exiting 50 duties. He might get some CBAs. And look, I mean, Wangan and Malira took some kick-ins and Sinclair took some CBAs and he went 124. He just looking the goods at the moment. Probably helps that Saints have won back-to-back games. I mean, don't discount that when looking at these scores. Winning and losing definitely affects how players score for the most part. So yeah, having a couple of wins like this can definitely help boost the score. All right, big news on the Saints side was Steele, who has cracked his collarbone or AC joint again, and still managed to play out another quarter with it, which is like interesting on two fronts. One, like how impressive is Jack Steele being like Man of Steel being able to play through that stuff? But two, how did like the docs or physios not figure out that it was that broken that he like shouldn't be playing through it? Anyway, courageous stuff, but he's going to be missing for like 4 weeks, so he's a must trade. Get rid of him. And then, yeah, Wangan Malira was a trade last week. He's still a trade this week. Stocker was good. So if you jumped on him, great. If you need to jump on a 200k option, I guess you could jump on Stocker if you really wanted to. Cameron we talked about was great. He's 102k, has now done 73. He's got Essendon this week, which should be a good chance to score some more points as well. I would imagine Saints come into that as favourites. So if you are desperate for a cheaper option at the 100k price mark, which is what Cammer offers that some of these other forwards don't, one that you could look at, and I think his break even was quite low, 49. There you go. They do need to, like, they can score less and still end up being good on the points. And then, I mean, Clark is a failed mid-pricer, get out of that. And then Philippou was all right, but definitely not a must-trade. And he kicked 3 goals, but only had 60 SuperCoach points. So I think that's probably someone you can avoid. Is getting up the ground a little bit, but I just, yeah, it's not there for that to be a good pick at the 166k price point. I'd rather have Camera at 102. Okay, how many games have we got left? 4 to go. Dockers, Roos. So this was, I guess, one of those surprise results of the round where like Freo is just so bad. Like, what is going on with this team? Just awful. Now, I was mainly watching the Bulldogs Saints game, not this game. I watched little bits and pieces of it. So less that I can provide from an insight from watching the game perspective, other than I can only assume that my hypothesis that O'Meara and Brody will not make a good midfield is coming to fruition. Hayden's Young score was very low on 50. He got knocked basically in a marking contest and had to go off for assessment. I think it was a HIA for that. Missed a period of time. which is why his tum ground's probably a little bit lower than what you'd expect normally. But yeah, otherwise wasn't playing the best outside of that anyway. Didn't have any kick-ins, which is a bit of a concern. All went to Ryan and Cox. That hurts his score. I mean, this is what we talked about in the preseason. If Young's getting kick-ins, he's more attractive because it increases that floor. So to see him not getting any is definitely a concern for me. And then Darcy was shocking. He was on -5 or 6 or something at halftime, kind of recovered with almost an okay second half. But yeah, I mean, I think he's someone that can go. His ruck forward split was like 70% ruck, 30% forward. So it should have been okay, but the points weren't there. I think the only thing that's leaning towards maybe you can hold Darcy is that he plays BJ Williams this week. And we'll look at, the scoring that we've seen from Flynn, and then so someone else went big on him last week. Cherry was on track for like a 130 or 140 last week, and then Comben went 90. He was a rookie. So BJ Williams giving up a lot of points is what I'm trying to say. And Darcy plays him next week, so maybe he is a 1 week hold. I'm not sure. But yeah, what else is worth talking about? I mean, Cox and Ryan, if Freo continues to play this disgusting game style, maybe these are the best two defenders in the league, and this is wild. But I think this probably regresses at some point. Brayshaw continues to have an awful SuperCoach to fantasy ratio. And yeah, Freo is just ultimately very disappointing. Probably getting out of Darcy, and if you got Young, you'd have Dacos. You could probably do that trade. On the north side, the three people worth talking about the most are the three at the top: LDU, Zeeble, and Sheasel. So LDU definitely looks the goods at 550k, and is probably a luxury trade in for those that might have knocked off or solved a lot of the other problems or have a lot of the other must trade ins and are looking for something else to do. I think LDU is one you can jump on. His break even must be low. Oh, this is gonna scroll funny. I wonder if it's negative. He's been that good. No, he's 18. Wow. So yeah, very good. Look to the goods, and I think some concern that I had in the preseason was whether or not he would get the same 80% plus CBAs, and we've seen it back-to-back games that they are going to play him as that number one bull. Also worth noting that Simpkin got a week, so those CBAs are going to go somewhere. It might be Phillips comes in for him. Maybe they give Powell some CBAs finally, but I can't imagine it affects LDU negatively. The one thing with LDU is I think they play the Hawks this week. So whether he gets tagged with a Finn McGuinness tag, I feel like it's not really his type of tag target, and it would make more sense for them to send him to a Sheasel, to tag Sheasel like what they did with Dacos in the preseason, or Zeeble. But we'll see how the Hawks handle that matchup. I have a feeling it won't go to LDU though. But yeah, I mean, he was good. Not a must-have, but a very nice option. And for those who jumped on him and started him as a pod and backed him in, well done. Great selection. Zeeble is disgusting in this role and actually looks a little bit better defensively than he has in previous years. He's taking most of the kick-ins as well, and there's no Hall. People get asking, what about when Hall returns? He's playing in the twos. He's not best 22. And with this Zeeble-Sheasel Wombo combo, I'm not really sure they're going to change that anytime soon. So I think Zeeble at 350k is someone you can jump on as someone that could be a premium. And Sheasel, if he continues this role, is also a premium, even though we paid 100 or 200k for him as a rookie, basically. If he keeps this role and they don't move him forward, he is a primo. So, yes, crazy stuff. And then, actually, what Comben came back to earth a little bit this week. I think this is one of the lowest rated games, something they had on file, which is not good. But not from a SuperCoach, but like player ratings perspective. I mean, he's back to playing forward now that Goldie's in and was playing ruck. I mean, just look at this, by the way. 14 hit outs to advantage of 27. Darcy had 5 on 28 hit outs to advantage. Oh, Freo's mids were not good. And it's benefit of heading to LDU, I guess, who had 17 contested and 11 clearances. Crazy. 638 meters gained. What a game. I wish I'd watched all of that. LDU magic. All right. We're on to the home stretch. We're on to the Sunday game. So we started out with Swans Hawks today. Only got to watch a little bit of this before the Bombers game and getting there. But I mean, Callum Mills had his annual cook against the Hawks. It was 200 last year, but this is pretty good given that he's playing mostly wing at the moment. I mean, look, just 8 CBAs. We can go have a look at exactly what that number was, but it continues to be low. Mills unlikely to be a top 8 midfielder at this point. 33%, so still behind Goulden, who held strong at 50, which is great split. Warner, Rowbottom, Parker. So yeah, he's well down the pecking order at the moment. Amadi had a great game, but let's not talk about him. Goulden was fine. Obviously, a lot of talk about his calf, but yeah, was perfectly fine. 450k, been a great pick so far. Swans, no one else to talk about. Roberts, poor Matty Roberts had the sub roll again. No one else Swans worthy talking about. And then Hawkside, yeah, I mean, Dill Moore continues to be a beast. If only he could get some CBAs. Like, he's still scoring well despite not getting them. Sicily was, like, I want to say he was on like 40 or 50 fantasy at quarter time and then slowed down as the game went on. One thing we called out last week, which was interesting, was he only had one kick in. That changed this week. He had 6 of 16. So yeah, close to a third, many more, but it took the most of the team as well. So I think that's a good sign. It continues to look like he'll be a good pick this year. Warple is obviously a talking point. Basically went 100 again. So 100 back-to-back weeks, 300k. Looking very good option. I think reiterate, I'd probably still have Setterfield and Hopper above him, but he's the cheapest of the 3, which is nice. And yeah, it was good. Day backed up another kind of like, he had a huge fantasy week last week, but he actually put SuperCoach points on the boards. He wasn't as inefficient this week. And we talked a little bit about this already, but his CBAs went up week on week, which is interesting. So I'm not sure how many people are looking for a defensive mid-price option, but you could always like review Day's footage and see if you like what you see there. Who lost out? Warple lost out a little bit. Mackenzie lost out a lot. We'll talk about that in a second. And then Nash gained. Okay, so yeah, the big story with was kind of Mackenzie with Nash coming in. So Mackenzie ended up playing something like 50% game time forward and got much fewer CBAs this week. Not good for scoring. So if this keeps up, he's the type of rookie that you actually want to get off your field sooner rather than later, and maybe even get out of the pick, unless you think that Hawks are going to start giving him CBAs again. Because in games where they get dominated like this and he's playing forward, he's just scoring is going to be so poor. So a little bit of a minor concern there, despite the good first week. If he's not getting CBAs, this pick becomes a lot less appealing. Now, he was moved forward on the back of really Nash playing this game. Nash laid a pretty nice bump on Mills, and I don't know if he got reported or if it's going to get looked at, but if Nash does miss a week, it will help Mackenzie, I would imagine, as well, and maybe even Warple a little bit. So yeah, I mean, Warple still looks like a good pick, but with his CBAs going slightly down, slightly less interesting, Day becomes more interesting to me. And yeah, that's I think that's everything from that game. Bombers, Suns. All right. Firstly, go Dons. Secondly, let's talk about Will Setterfield, which still hurts to look at the score given that I picked Cogs over him. That was like an instantly 40-point loss, and it cost me, 150k more, 200k more. He was very good. He was very good this game, and fixed the main concern that I had last week, which was the fact that he didn't have any contested possessions. He was great this week. It didn't really matter who he matched up on, whether it was Miller or Rao, who were really the two that he went side by side the most. Looked good in both of them. And like, he plays a really SuperCoach friendly game, is what I observed as well, in the sense that he is very safe with his disposal. If he can't find a obviously open target, he won't try and take risky kicks or touches. From what I saw, for the most part, like, he'll just bomb it long, 50 meters into the forward line. So he's got a very nice SuperCoach game. It looks like he's the real deal. Tackles well. So yeah, one to jump on for sure. The only concern with him was I think he already had his quad strapped, and then from where we were sitting at the end of the game, like last minute, 2 minutes, he was behind play on a wing, grabbing the back of his leg, trying to stretch it out, and we were trying to figure out, has he done a hamstring? Is he cramping?
I heard other people say groin or quad. So just keep an eye on this space. Setterfield like this is big guesswork. He may be someone that could miss a week. Now, I'm probably currently planning to have him in my team, just given how low his break even is and how scary these games are. But just keep an eye out for an ear out for whether or not there is actually any concerns and whether they do something like rest him a week just to make sure he is okay. I want to say I was going to try and get the fixture up, but I can't do that at the moment. I think we play Saturday night, so you just need to figure out how you can reverse trades if that doesn't go well. All right, the other I guess Essendon player worth talking about is Ridley, who scored just 70, and that hurts given that was in my side. Now, I will say a couple of observations here. Firstly, Gold Coast didn't want to allow Essendon to switch the play across the back line. They were pushing up with their forwards more than what I've seen other teams do in the past, what happened with Essendon last week. So less switching definitely hurt Ridley a little bit. And then secondly, they just weren't using that side of the ground. So anytime they were exiting out of the kick-ins, Ridley was kind of setting up short for the, quick chip 20, 30 meter kick to the kind of pocket. And Essendon had no interest in taking that. Anytime Redmond was taking a kick in, that was going to the other side, way above Ridley's head. Um, so yeah, that didn't help whatsoever. And then on top of that, Ridley had about I want to say 3 or 4 intercept marks that he would normally take that he dropped. So on one side, really disappointing to see a 70. On the other hand, if I think about the intercept marks and the fact that Gold Coast probably was shutting down some of that switch play that Essendon would normally look for, that Ridley would get engaged in or involved in, it's not the worst score, but I mean, it does look like so far 2 games in, Redmond was probably the better pick of the two of them at 500k, and it's probably unlikely Ridley will be a keeper. But I don't think it's someone I have to trade out yet either, especially given once again Saints, who they're playing next week, who seem to be bleeding points this position at the moment. I will, however, say that Dirk Thatcher went down with an ankle injury late, and that is a concern because without Thatcher, Ridley probably has to play more accountable. Not as big of a problem against Saints, but potentially probably a bigger problem against some of the other sides. So yeah, keep an eye on whether or not that ankle injury is serious. I've heard reports that it might not be that bad, and he could even play this week. I'm guessing he probably misses one, and they bring him back the week after. But yeah, if it's longer, like a month or 2 months, then that is a big problem for Ridley and makes him more of a priority to get rid of. Just quickly on the rookies, so Davey had a really good first half, basically did nothing in the second half, just let him simmer away on your bench. And then Menzies continues to be good, kicked a couple of goals, could have had more than that really as well. Continues to look a good option if you picked him up, but not someone that like I'd prioritize over Chandler, for example. Maybe if you had the spare money, I would have him over Kemmer. I'd 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 have him over Philippou for sure. But yeah, yep. Um, on the Sun side, Wits was all right. I mean, he looked laboured and lethargic, and honestly, there were periods of the game where I felt like he went missing, but we then like checked the SuperCoach score and it somehow went up. So I don't know if it was just like spoils and right contest work that I just wasn't observing well from the third deck, but I mean, he had 12 hit outs to advantage, which is a nice little number there. Um, but yeah, I mean, he seems to like he'll be okay. I think English probably still has the better ceiling, but Wits looks like he could line up for R2 at the moment. I thought Phillips and Draper did a pretty good job on him as well, so to still manage to go 108 SuperCoach despite that is, I think, pretty impressive. Miller and Rao, I really liked how Rao played today. So like aggressive and hard at the ball. But yeah, Miller was looking for lots of cheap stuff, just did not use it particularly well. Well, he had 10 clangers. Wow. But I think the promising thing was like some of the work rate that you look for him was definitely there this week, which I think is nice. Looks like he might be someone that we try and pick up cheap as a premium option throughout the year. Constable was pretty bad again with the ball in hand, I will say. Wasn't as bad as week 1, so there's some promise, some improvement there. I wonder what they're going to do with their back line because honestly, Constable, Long, And even Newland, who I was impressed with last week, like I didn't think any of them looked good today against Essendon. I thought they all had issues. So yeah, with I think they've got to be hoping like Powell and Ellis return. I just wonder who gets dropped. To be honest, Constable is still probably better than both Long and Newland today. But yeah, like I'm still a little bit worried about whether Constable gets a nice long stretch of games for him to make the money before we get rid of him. But really not much we can do about it. We're all in the same boat. But just back your mind type stuff. All right, final game, Eagles Giants. So watched about the first half of this. Where Cogs is absolutely flying. I'm like, oh look, this is all right. He's going to end up making the 150, but really, I think he was on like 50 at quarter time, and then petered out pretty badly after that. I wouldn't be surprised if he had only like 30 points in the second half, to be honest. And kind of a disappointing 107 at the end. But yeah, I mean, Cogs and Green were fine. They keep carrying on. Green, for what you paid, very happy with. I guess the surprise was the fact that West Coast just beat the Giants. West Coast looked terrible week one. Giants looked not great, but they looked okay at parts. But yeah, I mean, they looked pretty horrid today. And you can really see with all of like Kelly, Perriman, Bruin, Taranto, and Hopper missing that like they actually just don't have inside mid depth anymore. And it really showed today, and it really hurt today. Flynn, as I mentioned, like absolutely killed BJ Williams. So I probably don't get sucked into him as an option, but 39 hitouts, 15 to advantage. This gives me some hope for Darcy next week. It's the only thing that I can kind of hold on to right now. On the GWS side, Ash had a better game without Whitfield, which is to be expected. So if Whitfield's back next week, I imagine you probably get some regression on Ash's scoring. If Whitfield misses another week, then maybe you can potentially hold Ash one more if you've got other bigger problems in your side. Callahan had his shoulder knocked, I want to say by Sheed, and it just looked like, well, it wasn't a big contact, but it popped out awkwardly, and he ran around like a lame duck for the rest of the game. Ware got cannonballed for a second time in 2 weeks, but instead of his head, he had his shoulder dislocated and was subbed. So I think Callahan kind of just was, running fat side defender to at least have another body on the field, which probably doesn't help. Already injured, then lose Ware, then Callahan's playing injured, just not great stuff. But I mean, yeah, Callahan probably needs to be traded because, yeah, this is not good. No one else really worth talking about here. I mean, Harry Rouston was the debutant. 48 Supercoach, 19 fantasy. It's a very good ratio, but I mean, I don't know if his place holds long. Oh wow, he had a lot of CBAs too. Not that good of a score then, given how many CBAs he had. Okay, and then West Coast side. Shout out to Hunt, who I have in fantasy. That was a very nice score. Good on you, lad. Sheed was better this week, but I think still pretty average. Glad I avoided. Definitely not someone worth owning. Jimby continues to be good. Jimby. I always forget the pronunciation of that. But yeah, I mean, like good solid rookie that happy to play on field every week down back. Cole regressed after last week, and Chesser looks like a dud, someone that we can move on from our sides, and that is probably what I'll be doing. So this is a great way to transition to trades of the week. So as I mentioned, this is the perfect time to fix up your structure before the rest of the season gets underway, and that is what I'll be doing. So thinking about the must-haves or the priority ins and the priority outs I was listing before. The priority ins that I don't have are Zeeble in the forward line, Setterfield in the midfield, and I think that's about it. I'm pretty good on everyone else. Got Dacos, McKenna, we've got Hopper, Warple, these other rookies, Hollins, Sheasel, Chandler, got all them already. And then the trade outs are the ones that I've got that I probably don't want anymore. So McRae and Darcy. So we can probably start to see how some of these things will play out just naturally. This is going to be so slow. I apologize. So originally the reason for going Cornelio over Setterfield was I was going to look at Darcy Cameron in the rucks. But I think if Setterfield's going to be a must-have this week, it probably changes things for me anyway. All right, so first two trades will be Chesser and McRae to Zeeble. and Setterfield. So after stripping out premiums, mid prices last week, I've kind of put them back in this week. And it looks like then I'm pretty happy with that because I've basically got the 4 mid prices that look like must-haves: Setterfield, Hopper, Warple, and Zeeble. Pushes Chandler to the bench for now, which is not the worst thing. And the midfield, I've got Hollands there for cover, which is good. I mean, this Mackenzie pick, I don't know if I necessarily want to play Mackenzie each week. Who have Hawks got? North. All right, he's probably fine to play for another week. Carlton have got GWS, though. I mean, Hollands could be good there. And then really the only other thing I've got that's a problem is Darcy. So I can boost a trade here. And I can get rid of Darcy. For English. So slow. 100k banked, which is not good. I mean, this 100k really should be on the field somewhere. But that is okay. I mean, I think if Crozier, for example, or Bose end up looking like really good options next week, then maybe I could use it to get them. I could also look at using it sometime soon to get like Ridley up to Sicily early, which might be a play for me, and using the money for that, or even to help like getting a Laird or a Oliver in early. I'd rather have the money deployed in my team somewhere, but it is like this. And yeah, the other thing that's obviously a problem is Cogs is stuck in my midfield at the moment. And you know, like given that all of these could be keepers, and I also have Cogs, I'm kind of sitting at like 7 forward keepers at the moment, which is a bit of a problem. But maybe Sheasel ends up, you know, being used at half forward eventually. But I mean, I can always move these back around 6 anyway. Let's just have a quick gander at vice captain and captain. Haven't really thought about it too much, but we'll just see if anything sticks out when we look at the matchups here. I mean, so for those bringing in LDU this week, you could potentially vice captain against Hawks. For those bringing in Dacos this week, you could potentially vice captain against the Tigers. They're probably unlikely to tag, but I think they will do some stuff defensively, even if it's not a hard tag. Dogs against Lions on Thursday night at Marvel. Hard to trust anyone in this matchup. I mean, I think Dunkley could go well. It's a revenge game, so maybe I like that as an option. Big O is a restrictive, like one of the more restrictive rucks, or at least he was in the past. So I'm not really sure I like English as an option, despite his very nice average. And Bont's probably off as well. GWS Carlton. Hopefully we've got Josh Kelly back. But yeah, like I don't think. I mean, this is a tougher midfield to score on, so I don't think any of the GWS options are good ones. And I don't think I'd look at Doherty or Cripps in this matchup either. Saints Essendon. No, I don't think there's really anyone there that you'd look at. Crows Port, no. Gold Coast Geelong, no. I mean, like Crows Port, I guess check Rory Ladd's history against them, whether it's good, and then I'd check Oliver's history against Swans. But Oliver's a safe captain; he's probably going 120 regardless. Should be a good game, that one. So there really isn't a lot here. So I actually do kind of like Dunkley revenge game as probably the vice captain, and then the captain I'm not really sure about. It's a bit tough for me in particular. Oh, like Taranto is an interesting vice captain this week. We'll see. I actually don't really have a captain option this week. Unlucky for me. All right, but that is the team. I'm now going to hit end recording on this and actually hope that it worked. And I can upload it to YouTube, and you can all actually view this scuffed video sometime this week. But yeah, if you've got any questions, comments below, thoughts about trades or anything like that, if you think there's priority ins or outs that I've missed that you would like to be included on that list, please let me know. Otherwise, I will see you sometime later this week. Hope you had a good round 2. Hope you're setting up well for the season ahead. Peace.